So I just want to end by talking to you about another hot topic in autism research, which is the question of outcomes, right? I think that I love the discussion this morning about the sort of critique. I think Dr. Grinker helped push us to think very carefully and very critically about how we define culture. And I think one of the things that he said that really resonated very importantly for me is the idea that we have to always be mindful of what are we trying to do, right? So despite all the problems with the diagnostic labels that he explained very well, the whole point of having a label is that you get support as a result of that, right? So just trying to sort of be mindful of what we're trying to achieve. And I think it's also a broader question that we have to think about that the field is now grappling with, of how do we define good outcomes in autism, right? Several years ago, people used to use things like symptom scores as our primary outcomes in intervention studies. And now we thought, wow, what a bad idea that was, because now we know they don't shift very much with time. So despite the fact that we see visible improvements in things like language, communication, social engagement, we're reporting very little shift in those primary outcomes because we've defined them on the basis of symptoms, right? So this was sort of like a good, straightforward answer, but we know it doesn't work very well now. So what should substitute that is a really important question that's still being debated, and I think this is where input from the community is very, very important as well. So this is one of the new directions of the Pathways study that I mentioned earlier, a sub-study of phase 3, which just got funded last year. It's called ASD Voices, and it's where we're trying to sort of design and test methods to understand first-person perspectives of the youth participating in the study. So these kids are going to now be followed from the age of about 14 or 15, hopefully up until adulthood. And so the question for us is, could we get more information directly from them about how they define good outcomes? Okay? And unlike what might be your kind of first guess at the answer, we just decided that we don't want to take the ones that are verbal and have high IQ, put them in a room and talk to them for a few minutes and say, okay, now we know. We wanted to figure out, and I don't know if Pat Miranda's here, but she's our co-conspirator, bring Pat and sit her down in a room with a bunch of kids that aren't able to communicate using language and say, how could we develop the methods to reliably get those perspectives in alternative ways? Okay? Lots of really good literature in other fields on that, and it's been a very, very big challenge for autism because communication is one of the defining features. And yet, I think this is how we're taking on this sort of major challenge, because we don't think the study will be very complete unless we have that piece of the puzzle in it. So with that, I'm going to thank you for listening.